What is up, guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today is the day we are officially starting this book. It has been on my shelf for literally years at this point. It's been a long time. I don't even remember when I bought it. And it's just one of those books that sits there for a really long time because it's thick. She's thick. She's intimidating. She's over 1,000 pages. Let me get the exact number. 1,157 pages. It's technically 3 books in one. That's what this volume is. I have read a few Murakami before, like whatever his 2 first stories were. I don't know if they were like short stories or novels. I've read those. I wasn't like super impressed with him. Initially, my plan was going to be to read all of Murakami's stuff in publication order. I don't know about that. I think I'm just going to maybe start with his greatest hits and then kind of go from there. And 1Q84 being, I guess, somehow sort of related to 1984 is the reason I really want to read this one. 1984 by George Orwell is one of my favorite books of all time. I've read it 3 times now. So if this is going to be anything at all like that, I'm not sure how it might be related. But if it is, I am really pumped to see what sort of connections and overlaps maybe in the story or in the plot. The only other book that I've read of this kind of length was Under the Dome by Stephen King, and I found Under the Dome to be a little bit underwhelming just because you do expect a book of that volume to really like knock your socks off, because you just assume like it must need to be that long for a reason, and I didn't really find that Under the Dome needed to be that long. I'm hoping I don't run into that same issue. I am a little intimidated, like I said, but I'm kind of ready. I'm ready to find out what happens, and I'm hoping that the writing is maybe a little more captivating, or at least the characters are a little more compelling than his 2 previous stories that I have read, because like I said, I wasn't too obsessed with those. So, wish me luck. So it is time for a reading update. I am taking a little break from 1Q84. I'm running into the issues that a lot of people are criticizing it for, which I didn't read reviews before I started. But repetitive writing and like kind of cliches are pretty heavy, and I've noticed that in the writing, and I think I just need a little bit of a break from it. I have thought about DNFing it. I don't think I'm going to do that just because I really want to try to make it through. Hopefully it gets a little bit better. I don't know. So I'm like a third of the way through. And boyfriend and I are here at the park. He went off fishing, and I brought something along that's going to be a little bit more fun, I think, and lighthearted. So this is People from My Neighborhood, which is a work of translated Japanese fiction, short stories. So it's just a little bit lighter, and the inside is the same. It like folds out kind of. So pretty. And just on our way into the park this morning, there was so many like springy things happening. There was like some ducks, and then some geese who just had like 5 little babies. They were so cute and fuzzy. Yeah, so I am ready for a fun spring read. So we're going to take a little bit of a break from 1Q84. I will definitely update you guys in whatever reading vlog this ends up being in, probably my May reading vlog, which may already be out. So you will hear my thoughts in that video. So I finished book 1. First thoughts, it's a good setup. It's basically 387 pages of setup. There's a lot of interesting questions that are brought up that we don't get answers to. Obviously, it is a trilogy. Like, the idea is that you have to read books 2 and 3 to find out everything. So he's done a very good job at like laying the framework for like the story that's still to come. The pacing is decent. It kept me reading. There was a little bit of a break I took there in, was it like late April, early May, something like that, where I put it down for a while. But eventually I was curious enough to pick it back up again. I thought about DNFing it, but I really wanted to like see what happens. I have not found any obvious similarities yet to 1984. Probably shouldn't have Googled anything, but I got curious and I'm like, you know, at what book, like, is it book 1, 2, or 3? When do we find out like the overlaps? And a lot of people are saying the only real similarity is that they're both set in 1984, but like an alternate universe 1984. So in George Orwell's book, I don't know why we have two. I think this is my copy and this is boyfriend's copy. So this was originally written in 1949 and Orwell was actually really sick near the end of it. I remember reading, he wasn't even able to like get out of bed and physically write. He was like dictating, I think, to somebody at one point. He was like writing this with his dying breath. This is an imagined future, right? So it's 1949 when he's writing, or at least when it was published. So he's imagining this future world. With 1Q84, we are imagining a past, an alternative past. So I have yet to find any real similarities in like theme. Everybody's saying the only thing that really like connects them or makes them similar is just the fact that they take place in that year. So a lot of people were saying in terms of the actual story, there's not a lot of similarities. I'm hoping that there are some things that I can pick up on because that was the whole point of reading this. I don't read a lot of political books at all, and 1984 is very political, but there's something about the way that it's written and how many similarities it has to today's society that makes it fascinating in like an uber creepy way. So I was hoping maybe there would be some sort of dystopic, because this is considered dystopia, so I was hoping there was going to be some sort of like the setting was going to be kind of, you know, dystopic, or the characters are going to be going through something that was kind of similar, and that has not come about yet. I am going to continue with books 2 and 3 because I do want to see what happens to the characters. I find them all really fascinating for different reasons. So we're following like it's like a dual perspective narrative. So we've got Tengo and Aomame. I could totally be butchering their names. I hope I'm not. So Tengo is writing, he's sort of ghost writing and editing this manuscript that was presented to him by his literary agency, and it was written by, I believe, a 17-year-old girl she's very shy. She almost seems mute, like she won't really say anything to anybody. Basically, she just like seems insane, but because the literary agent really wants to publish this manuscript because it's so good, he offers a deal for Tengo to go in and tweak it, rewrite it, and just kind of polish it up a little bit. So that's mainly what Tengo is doing. Aomame is really fascinating. She's an assassin. She is hired by a woman, I think, who's just known as the Dowager. I don't know if we get her name or not, to help her assassinate a man. I don't want to go too into detail because I don't want to spoil anything. We also have this narrative happening sort of in the background of this cult known as Sakigake, again hoping I'm pronouncing it correctly, and supposedly the girl who wrote the manuscript that Tengo is editing, her father is supposedly the leader of this cult. And they're doing some pretty shady things. We don't really know what. We get some more details about it in one of the chapters where I felt a little bit annoyed because a lot of it is just like spewed out at you, and I always want to kind of like see things unfold and like learn a little bit here and there and get these little breadcrumbs. That way it keeps this like mystery alive. And that's not what happened. We definitely just got like a big text block of like the entire origin of this cult. I feel like that could have been handled a little bit better. Something I did forget about the cult that relates to 1984, where George Orwell is like directly addressed, is it says their world is like the one Orwell depicted in his novel. There are plenty of people who are looking for exactly that kind of brain death. It makes life a lot easier. You don't have to think about difficult things, just shut up and do what your superiors tell you to do. This line is really reminiscent of Yeonmi Park's In Order to Live. She's a North Korean defector, and she talks about how similar North Korea is to 1984. There's a point in which, like, after she's escaped, she was in one of the like camps where they teach you or it's like a school where they teach you about the world, because like there's no internet in North Korea, like they don't know anything about the outside world. She's in one of these schools to learn how to like live in contemporary society. At one point she gets really frustrated because she never developed the skill of critical thinking, because her government's always telling her what to think, what to believe, how to feel, like what to say. And so she kind of realizes in that moment, like, I want somebody to just tell me what to say, because it's easier than having to truly like critically think about something on my own. So there is a similarity there. So I did like that little comparison. I forgot about that. In terms of its issues, okay, it has plenty, right? There are some problems for sure. I can't even make the excuse that like it was written a long time ago, like if it had been written in like the 50s or something. There is certainly a plentiful share of misogyny in this book. It almost got to the point where I'm like, okay, is he just poking fun at objectifying women? Because it's like such a recurring thing, it becomes like a motif in the book, and you're like, okay, is he just like, is it supposed to be like satire? Basically, the young woman who wrote the original manuscript that Tengo is editing, she, I believe, is supposed to be a minor. I think she's supposed to be 17. The amount of times that Tengo references her boobs, I don't know. Maybe like in my head, I'm like, okay, maybe it's like a cultural thing. Like, you know, you're like trying to find ways to justify it. It's a little weird. It wouldn't be as bad maybe if she was like an adult, but she's supposed to be very young. She comes off as very innocent. She's written in a very like soft, delicate way. It's kind of like in Lolita, where you're like, I get it, he's in love and he thinks it's beautiful. You guys are like scrambling to like get the manuscript edited and get it published and get it out into the world to make money, but the only way that they want to talk about her is about her body or how crazy she seems. So ultimately I did end up giving it 4 stars. I wrote down some questions that I have to keep those fresh on the top of my mind. I do want to finish it. I do want to follow those loose threads and see if they go anywhere, see if there's any more similarities I can find between this and 1984. You guys let me know. Don't spoil anything, but put in the comments if you've read this before. If you've read this and 1984, like, how do they compare? I am thinking, however, that on the back where it says it's a dystopia to rival George Orwell's, that is probably a load of crap. Right now, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So that is my review of book 1, April through June. You guys let me know, what are you reading for summer? I'm always open to some good book recommendations. And thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.